Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Thaarenee Wiswannadan from the National Cancer Society of Malaysia, and I'm delighted to be the moderator of today's session. As you may know, World No Tobacco Day is coming up on May 31st, 2023. To celebrate, we from the National Cancer Society of Malaysia have organized a series of webinars titled Harms of Harm Reduction in Tobacco Control, running from April to May 2023. This series of webinar aims to raise awareness about the false narrative of harm reduction strategies in tobacco control and their impact on public health. Over the next 8 sessions, we will be exploring various aspects of harm reduction in tobacco control, understanding the issues with vaping and health, communication strategies in dispelling those common myths and misinformation for our tobacco control advocates. We have invited representatives who are strong advocates in the field of tobacco control to share their expertise and insights in support of this series of talks. So today's session is the 4th episode in the series, and we'll be exploring the topic of perspectives in harm reduction in tobacco control, initiation versus reduction. Our speakers for today are Dr. Murallitharan Munisamy, the Managing Director of National Cancer Society of Malaysia, and we are honored to have Dr. Muaz bin Saiditi, who is the Principal Assistant Director of Tobacco Control Sector, for joining today's session. He'll be presenting on behalf of Dr. Ariana today. Thank you, Dr. Muaz. As the first speaker for today's session, Dr. Murali will be discussing on smoking cessation through the drug development and approval lens. After that, Dr. Muaz will be sharing with us about harm reduction in tobacco control and how it is being used for harm initiation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at the Docketing platform. Our speakers will answer as many questions as possible within the allocated time at the end of the session. Over to you, Dr. Murali.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much for all our colleagues joining us, and thank you to Dr. Muaz from the Ministry of Health Malaysia who's kindly joined us for the session today. As you know, this is, I think, session 4 in the series of sessions, and the other sessions are still on Docketing, so you can go and access them there. And the reason for this entire series is to look very critically at the idea of harm reduction in tobacco control, and more importantly, kind of dissect the science pertaining to it and how this term harm reduction has been misused time and again by the industry in terms of pushing out their own narrative, and maybe for us what is clearly an effort to create a new generation of people who will be dependent on nicotine products. So we've tried, we continue to try over this series to debunk these ideas, as well as to give scientific insights to our colleagues across the clinical landscape to how better understand these concepts, and to give you ammunition as well for you to be able to advocate better. So today, in the previous sessions, in session 1 and 2 and 3 as well, we've looked at, in session 1, we looked at harm reduction as a principle and how it's used in public health and how it's been misused now within the tobacco control landscape. In session 2 and 3, we looked at evidence on in terms of nicotine, and as well as on vaping, the use of these devices, the types of devices, and kind of where the evidence is pertaining to in terms of safety and efficacy of these devices, as well as how harm reduction is actually in reality either harm initiation, harm substitution, or harm intensification, as it pertains to different groups of users of conventional cigarettes, as well as people who've never used any form of conventional cigarettes before. Today, I'm going to take maybe about 20 odd minutes to discuss with you on the kind of perspective of harm reduction within this lens of smoking cessation. What do I mean by this? As you know, the reason, one of the big kind of background ideas in the use of e-cigarettes and vaping products is in the context of using them as a form of smoking cessation. The idea that has been kind of, or the narrative that has been built out by industry is that, oh, look, people are addicted on conventional cigarettes, and conventional cigarettes are dangerous. They have these carcinogens, but people are not able to get off conventional cigarettes because of the nicotine. They're addicted to the nicotine. So now we will get them to stop smoking by getting them on e-cigarettes or vaping products. And by doing that, the term they're using for this is smoking cessation. So, but of course, a very, very narrow definition of the term smoking cessation, in the sense that they're calling smoking cessation this idea of stopping smoking altogether, which is not true, because what people are doing is actually they're just substituting one product to another product, in the sense that they continue getting delivery of nicotine through another product. So it's arguable whether it's actually still smoking or not. But however, let me come to this idea of smoking cessation. So if you looked at any kind of drug across the drug landscape, so for us as clinical practitioners, this session is built towards healthcare professionals, very specifically medical professionals. And we understand that in our daily practice, we use drugs and therapeutics, either drugs or medical devices, to manage our patients, deliver the interventions that we need in terms of pharmaceutical interventions. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, we understand also that in order for us to get a drug is not merely something you pluck off a tree. In order for it to be used in allopathic medicine, as we practice it today, okay, drugs have to actually go through a very rigorous testing process and a regulatory process for a drug to be approved, to be used for a very specific indication onto a specific group of patients. This has been kind of built on a very rigorous scientific framework. And whenever there are new products or drugs or inventions such as vaccines coming into the use of the clinical landscape to be used by physicians and other healthcare professionals, we make them to undergo these processes in order to determine two big things, which will continue repeating over the day today, and my colleague Dr. Muaz will also build on this as well, which is safety and efficacy. So first, in order for a drug to be, registered or approved to be used for a certain purpose, that drug needs to be effective. It needs to treat or improve the condition that it's meant to treat, saying it in very layman's terms. And second, a drug needs to be safe, in the sense that, for example, if I give you a drug that's supposed to lower your blood pressure, okay, and the drug is is very effective at lowering your blood pressure, but at the same, so we can call that drug as an effective drug. But let's say at the same time, while the drug is extremely effective at lowering your blood pressure, it also kind of causes gangrene, for example. So over time, as you use the drug more and more, your blood pressure will become lower, but your feet will become gangrene, and you'll finally have amputation of your toes, for example. So, and that really means that this drug, even though it's effective, is not safe, because it's causing a lot of side effects or dangerous effects. Now, these two components have to be assessed together when we want to actually approve a drug. And only when a drug is both safe and efficacious can that drug be used or it's approved to be used within the medical perspective. So within the next maybe a couple of slides, I want to actually speak to you again about this whole concept of drug approval and processes, And after that, I'm going to contextualize it to this idea of using e-cigarettes and vaping products to smoking cessation, and how it's actually not proportionate, as in the science doesn't measure up. Okay, what do I mean by this? Let's go on to the first slides. Okay, so basically what we are trying to do is we're trying to actually ask this question to determine whether the safety and efficacy of e-cigarettes and vaping products, are they up to par? So in order to answer this question, I'm going to first ask this question of answer this earlier question, which is, what are the processes to develop a therapeutic product and get it approved by regulatory authorities? A lot of us know this. Some of us may be a little unclear about this. We may have forgotten. So let me go through this very quickly as well. So next slide. Let's look at development and approval of therapeutic products through using the FDA as an example. So first, why the FDA? The FDA, as you know, is the Food and Drug Administration. It's one of the world's eminent regulatory agencies. So it does a few things, the FDA. One is it's supposed to ensure the safety, efficacy, and security of pharmaceutical products and medical devices. It also is intended to ensure the safety of food supply, cosmetics, and radiation emitting products. And interestingly enough, within the mission of the FDA, it actually is also intended to regulate manufacturing, marketing, and distribution of tobacco products, as well as to reduce tobacco use by minors. So the FDA, the US, is the agency for the US, and it's got a lot of skin in the game in the sense that it actually, within its mission prerogatives, has very clearly a defined role to specifically look into tobacco and tobacco products, as well as a remit to ensure that it is safe. We need to reduce the use of tobacco onto minors. So very strong kind of governing kind of role of the FDA. Now, every country, next slide, please. Every country has its own version of the FDA, but the FDA is like, how do we call it? The Bapa or the Sifu, if I could use this term, in the sense that the FDA is the grandmaster of all regulatory agencies in the world. It's the benchmark on which other agencies like to see their work, and the FDA's approval processes and frameworks are duplicated all over the world by other agencies. Now, when you look at developing and approving a new drug, so generally there's this very robust process which starts after you kind of look into a drug in terms of discovery and development, which that itself takes many years. And then there's the preclinical phase, which again takes quite a significant number of years. And after that, there's a whole list of human trials where drug goes through a phase 1 clinical trial, a phase 2 clinical trial, and a phase 3 clinical trial, and involving more and more subjects. And after a phase 3 clinical trial, usually if the drug shows very positive effects, you actually put up, the FDA approves the drug, and the drug can then be sold into the marketplace. However, this is not the end. It's somewhere in the middle, because even after a drug is approved, the FDA actually looks through many other processes. For example, it looks at post-marketing surveillance data, in which two customers that have already bought the drugs, so meaning the drug is approved, the drug is being used in the public domain, people who are buying and using this data, these drugs, the data is collected from them to continue looking at safety and efficacy, because over the long term, the FDA is also concerned on whether there are any long-term effects from using a certain drug, for example, and I'll talk to you about that example as well. So there's a whole robust process that's always kind of ongoing for any single drug that is approved within an allopathic or like a normal medical process in any country. So in our country, for example, within the Malaysian context, there is the agency called the NPRA, the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency, and that really is our country's FDA. So you will see that all countries have their own version of the FDA. In some countries, it's even called the FDA of that country. So the US FDA refers to the US version of the FDA, and in other countries, there's their own FDA, which ensures that the safety and efficacy of drugs that we put into place for use in a clinical practice are indeed compliant to in terms of safety and efficacy. Next slide. So when you talk about drug discovery, okay, and I'm going to contextualize all this within the kind of ambit of e-cigarettes and vaping products. First, you look to see, you discover a new chemical molecule. It can come from the jungle. Maybe you go into the Amazon, you find a wild plant, and from that plant, you see natives for hundreds of years have been treating pain or infections with it. Seems to work, so you isolate that molecule, you take it out, and then you develop a new drug from it. Many drugs, including metformin, which we use in diabetes, have been developed from this pathway. Some drugs are developed in the lab entirely from various chemicals. They discover these new molecules. And when you find that this molecule has an effect, a positive effect, a therapeutic effect rather than a positive effect, because some drugs work work to create a negative effect, which then has a positive impact on the disease. So either way, if this drug or this molecule has a therapeutic effect on a biological pathway, then you've hit gold. This is actually a chemical molecule that you may develop to become an actual drug. So at this point, research is performed within the lab. You use cell cultures, animal models, and so on. Next slide, please. So and this process can take any time between 2 to 10 years. So for sure, when people developed the liquids that you were going to use in e-cigarettes, as well as those e-cigarette devices themselves, drug companies are not the players here. The tobacco industry is the player. So tobacco industry companies spend a lot of time and research into actually looking at what are like these content of these e-liquids containing nicotine. So, to see whether they can be used as substitutes and for conventional cigarettes. So a lot of money goes into, has definitely gone into that development. Now, in terms of preclinical research, so subsequently, this in terms of preclinical research, these molecule or this molecule that was discovered in the first phase, you then undergo further optimization and testing in laboratory and animal models. So to determine what doses are safe to be used for them to be used in humans, what doses they need to be given, whether they need to be given orally, whether they're given subcutaneously, and all these testing which they do in animals, it has to be overseen by proper labs, by proper regulatory authorities, and like clinical research institutions. So, and this is very interesting. And so has this been done for e-cigarettes and vaping in terms of determining a dose? So very unclear data on this. And this is where it's kind of, you can see the big deviation from the process, because you need to understand that within e-cigarettes and vaping products, there's a big disconnect. First, that's the liquid, and that liquid content is more or less like in terms of a drug. It's the same, it's basically a substance that you're administering into the body. So by right, it should be compliant to drug development processes. And the devices themselves that they use, that actually needs to be compliant to medical device kind of approval processes. So has it been done? This is kind of where it starts to deviate a little bit from the conventional kind of research and development pathway of drugs. Moving on. So after you've done this lab data with mice or monkeys or whatever in this preclinical testing phase, you are now good to go. You know that this substance that you have now determined to be effective, say for example in curing cancer or treating cancer. So this substance is now we've tested it in monkeys. It's safe, it's effective. You've determined the proper therapeutic doses in which to give this product. And with all this data, you go to the FDA and you say that, okay, I have done my preclinical work. I'm going to submit this investigational new drug submission. So you make a submission to the FDA to tell them that, hey, this is all the data I've collected so far. It seems to work in animals. It's safe in animals. It's effective in animals. These are the dosages that I want to test. And now I want to go on to do human testing. So I have to share with you the process that not all molecules that go through the preclinical process actually end up being, going into clinical phases. So maybe out of 20, 60, 70 molecules, maybe one will end up going. And from thousands of molecules that they actually identify in the drug development process, maybe 60 or 70 only actually end up going to this earlier preclinical phase. And from there, maybe one is the one that will go into investigation and new drug submission phase. Now, next slide. So once, let's say your approval agency actually approves you to go into human trials, then only you start going into phase one. Phase one involves about 20 to 80 people, healthy people. And in this, you test to see the drug pharmacokinetics, what the body does to the drug, how when the drug goes through your body, whether you inject or you eat it, how the body processes the drug. And also pharmacodynamics, what the drug is doing to the body, how is it binding to which receptor it binds, and subsequently what are the effects of this binding. So this is the phase one clinical trial. This starts to use humans. Then you go on to phase two, clinical trials. Next slide. Phase two clinical trials involves a few hundred participants. Okay, and these are not healthy participants. These are people with the condition that you want to treat. So for example, if you wanted people, so just now, for example, within the context of smoking cessation and the use of e-cigarettes and vapes, on a phase one clinical trial, you would actually test safety and efficacy with healthy volunteers, people who do not smoke. And this is data that I think no one has ever seen. So we're not even sure whether it's actually been done in terms of looking at the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of actually using vape or e-cigarettes and the liquid within them. Next, when you go into phase two, you actually need a couple of hundred participants within the smoking cessation kind of pocket. That means that this actually needs to be people who smoke conventional cigarettes, because what you're doing in terms of smoking cessation is get them to quit smoking. So again, what is this? Has this been done? We don't see any kind of data pertaining to this. So whether we actually looked to see the safety and efficacy of the drug is a question mark in that sense. Next, we go on to phase three. These are bigger trials. And usually phase three clinical trials run into thousands of patients. And in many cases, they need to be randomized controlled trials, which means you need to have a control group and an intervention group. The intervention group should get the intervention, and people should be randomized between both. Now, again, it becomes a problem because there is data, but the data, there's a couple of trials that have been run as RCTs, but these are really small trials with a lot of kind of biases within them. And so the evidence is maybe not even strong enough for us to put forward, for us to actually consider success, meaning whether e-cigarettes have actually been successful at actually really bringing about smoking cessation. And even then, what do we mean by smoking cessation is actually whether do they quit using nicotine products altogether. It's not been successful. So in terms of large scale phase 3 clinical trials, this has also kind of not happened when we're talking about e-cigarettes or vaping products. And don't forget, if for the purpose of this discussion, I'm lumping this all together, but by right, each different e-cigarette, each different vaping product is to be treated separately and needs to undergo the same rigorous process from phase 1 to phase 3 for each separate drug because each of them have different e-liquids, different e-liquid contents, and different devices. And so each of them need to undergo this entire process separately for them to actually get approved as a smoking cessation device. And this is the challenge because as far as we can see so far, none of them have gone through these processes. Going to the next slide, which is phase 4. Before you go into phase 4, once you've got your phase 3 clinical data, now you submit this new drug application where you make the submission to the FDA. And once the FDA says yes, you go on to the next slide. You can start marketing your drug, where the FDA actually sends this data. Where the FDA will review this data, and once they approve based on the safety and efficacy evidence, many drugs, I have to tell you, where they either fail in clinical trials phase 3, or even after that, after they pass their clinical trial phase 3, the FDA finds that, oh, they're not as effective as they were promised, or they're not as safe as they promised, and the FDA doesn't give approval. If the FDA does give approval, then you go on to your next stage, then it can then be marketed. Going on, next slide. Even though it's now registered, it can be marketed, these drugs need to actually be monitored. As I was telling you, the FDA will still run post-marketing surveillance, and sometimes the FDA will actually call for some specific post-marketing trials to be done, just to review like continued safety and efficacy of these products. Now, again, none of this we can see within the ambit or the landscape of e-cigarettes and vaping products when it comes to smoking cessation. So, and these are real problems, because with the lack of scientific evidence in this regard, it is actually, we're really treading on thin ground when we make this claim that, oh, it's smoking cessation. Going on next. So very simply enough, going by all these processes, the FDA themselves have actually said no. So to this idea of e-cigarettes and vaping products being positioned as smoking cessation products, i.e., that is aimed to stop individuals from smoking, the FDA says no. Going on to next slide. So this is the FDA advice. It says that to date, no e-cigarette has been approved as a cessation device or authorized to make a modified risk claim. So even in terms of this claim of harm reduction, the FDA says no. This is in 29 June 2022. And that's the most updated evidence, because it says there's not enough research to understand the potential risks and benefits these products may offer adults who use tobacco products. And to be very clear, please be careful to note that in terms of the population they're talking about is to people who are already using tobacco products. So they're not even speaking about people who've never used tobacco products, who have now started using these products, e-cigarettes and vaping products. So in terms of harm initiation, which I think Dr. Muaz will speak about in a bit. Next slide. So the problem, to summarize this, is if you look through a drug kind of approval and development pathway, e-cigarettes and vaping products have not gone down that road. But they want to kind of make the claim that they are the equivalent of a drug in terms of once you put on these products, you can actually stop smoking. But the evidence in terms of safety and efficacy are not present. And so like the big global kind of regulatory agency, which is the US FDA, the one that is benchmarked against all other countries, that they themselves have said the same thing that we're saying. Going on. So just a story, and this is again something for us to be really cautious about, because look, based on and this is actually our situation today in terms of e-cigarettes and vaping products is far worse compared to this story. And I'll tell you the story first. So for a lot of our colleagues who will actually remember, we actually talk about Vioxx. Vioxx, or this drug, rofecoxib, was a drug. It's a COX inhibitor along the same lines as celecoxib, Celebrex, and Acoxia. It comes within that family of drugs, as you can see, the name rofecoxib. So Vioxx had big clinical trials. It went through it had preclinical development, and then it went to phase 1, went to phase 2, went to phase 3. And this drug was a good drug. It was a painkiller, and the earlier generations of painkillers, naproxen, Ponston, mefenamic acid, all these drugs, sodium diclofenac, all these were drugs that caused a lot of GI effects. They were proven over time they would cause gastritis, chemical gastritis. So with this new group of painkillers, specifically rofecoxib in particular, when they did the clinical trials, they actually found that, this drug is very good, it's effective at reducing pain, and it was safe because it reduced the gastrointestinal effects. So the FDA actually put in, and they ran clinical trials following these entire processes, and they actually came up, they had thousands and thousands of patients on it, and the FDA looking at all these data, the safety clear, the efficacy clear, the FDA approved the drug. And what was interesting is, after the drug had been approved and had started to be marketed, they started a long-term study called the Vioxx Gastrointestinal Outcomes Research Study, VIGOR. And they were supposed to look at the long-term usage of Vioxx compared to naproxen. Naproxen is still a painkiller that we use today, an older painkiller. So what is interesting is, as the data began coming in, they actually found that Vioxx caused an increased risk of heart attack or stroke. And they pulled the drug, but unfortunately, by this time, the damage had been done. The FDA had pulled the approval of the drug, but millions of patients were already on the drug. And so a lot of deaths, even from the Vioxx study, they found that people on the Vioxx study who were on Vioxx compared to naproxen, they died twice as fast due to heart attack or stroke. It was quite a disturbing kind of story. And so they pulled Vioxx off the shelves. The FDA pulled the approval. So, and this, again, I'm reiterating, is a drug that went through the entire processes. It went through phase 1, the data was good. Phase 2, the data was good. Phase 3, the data was good. And only then the FDA put in approval and allowed the drug to be marketed. After it was marketed, then in the long-term data, they actually discovered that there was this huge increase in heart attack and stroke and all that. And then they acted to pull the drug. Now, if I was to apply this entire perspective to e-cigarettes and vaping products, these are products that we are touting to be effective at smoking cessation, even though they've not gone through any of these processes. They have yet to be approved by the FDA for this claim of smoking cessation. Yet we've all gone gung-ho to use them because of the kind of narrative shaped by the tobacco industry and how they've been pushing the marketing of these products. And even with all this data, when it came to long-term safety, Vioxx failed. There's so many other examples of drugs which have failed as well. But with this rigorous kind of assessment processes in place, we start putting this drug back. Here, even before we're starting to go into large-scale kind of implementation or getting people on board, some countries, including I think Malaysia, has made some errors in this regard, as in putting it out as a form of smoking cessation for the general public, when actually there's no data to this regard. I'm afraid the consequences are going to be catastrophic, as we can see. So I'm going to stop right here on that very, very sobering and disturbing note and pass it over to my colleague, Dr. Muaz, who will then speak further on initiation.
Thank you, Dr. Murali, for the comprehensive presentation. Now let us welcome Dr. Muaz to present his take on the topic about perspectives in harm reduction in tobacco control. Over to you, Dr. Muaz. Sorry, Dr. Muaz, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you, Thaarenee, and thank you, Dr. Murali. I'll share my slide. Okay. Okay, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me for the session today. I'll be representing Dr. Ariana lah, who actually supposed to deliver these topics. So thank you also to all colleagues, and if not too late, I would like to ucap selamat Hari Raya lah to all. We still in the month of Hari Raya, I believe. So today I will explain and I will share with you about the harm reduction and how it is being used for harm initiation. I believe just now Dr. Murali had already explained all the process that they have to go through in order to approve any drugs, also to use it as a smoking cessation. So it is not an easy process, and until now there is still no company or drugs or vaping product that is approved to be used as a smoking cessation. So after they cannot use the vape and the e-cigarette as a smoking cessation, what they do, they turn the product into being used for the harm initiation, and they use this product to initiate smoking behavior among especially non-smoker. Okay, so I would like to recap the previous explanation that have been explained on the previous session about the target of harm reduction, as Dr. Murali also explained just now. When we talk about harm reduction, quote and unquote, they only should be targeted among smokers, which is in Malaysia about 21.3%. So if we see the objective of the harm reduction, totally and solely should be to provide a quick smoking and stop the nicotine addiction. And as we know, until now, this product is still, no country approved this product as a smoking cessation. And for the this product should not be promoted to ex-smoker and of course to the non-smokers. So these are the narrative that had been built by the industries, that this is a quick smoking cessation product. They have like 7 days challenge. If you use this product, if you use this vape, then you will stop smoking. And they define smoking, they define vaping is not smoking, but we see vaping is also the act of smoking. And then also the narrative that it is a safer alternative. Vaping is a safer alternative. Why? Because the vape don't have smoke. Yes, of course, because the mechanism is very different from smoking. When you burn the smoke, and in vaping, they heat the liquid. Of course, there will be no tar. And then they say that it is safer because they found a lot of chemicals, 7,000 chemicals in the conventional smoke cigarettes. However, until now, a lot of evidence is keep compiling evidence that show that there are many chemicals also that produced by the vapor from vaping. So, and then in reality, Sorry. In reality, when they promote the product of vaping or electronic cigarette as a harm reduction, which is supposed only to promote to the smokers so that they can quit smoking. However, in reality, these are their targets also by the industries, which is first is the ex-smokers, which they have already stopped smoking, and then they will restart smoking. And then for the non-smokers, especially in children and adolescents, of course, these are the group that should not initiate any smoking addiction, any smoking behavior. So these are the group that was that had been targeted by the industries as they want to initiate smoking and start the nicotine addiction. So what I'm trying to explain is that the e-cigarette should not be promoted among ex-smokers, non-smokers, or even smokers, because there is still lack of evidence, and until now, these products are not approved as a quit smoking. Is one of the quit smoking cessation. And then what I want to highlight is how the industry target the adolescents and children. If we can see here in Malaysia, the smoking prevalence is about 20 to 22% over the years. It's not reducing, slightly reduced, but overall it's still high. And then, however, if we can see, use magnifier. So if you can see, the use of electronic cigarettes among Malaysian adults 15 years old and above increased from 3.2% in 2016 to 4.9% in 2019. And then from the TECMA and AHS, which is when we want to see the use of e-cigarettes among youth aged 13 to 17 years old, we can see the significant increase from 2016 from TECMA. There is 141,000 smoker adolescent who use vape, and increased to 211,000 in 2017. And the latest prevalence of youth that are using e-cigarettes and vape, we can see from the AHS also the numbers, the percentage are increasing, prevalence are increasing from 9.8% in 2017, increased significantly to 14.9% in 2022. So these numbers are very alarming, and if we don't do something right now, so we might see a generation that most of them are addicted to the nicotine. And of course, the initiation is not just for nicotine. We can see a lot of vaping products that are laced with other drugs, and we will see all sort of addiction among the future generation in Malaysia. So these numbers actually are very alarming. So these are the data that came from Kotak, which is Program Kesihatan Oral Tanpa Amalan Merokok, where all our dental officers from the government, they went to every schools in Malaysia, and they screened almost more than 90% of primary schools and secondary school children. And they found out that for the conventional cigarettes, for 2022, for the conventional cigarette, there are about 24,000 secondary school children who use conventional cigarette, and at the same time, the numbers of electronic cigarette use and vape among secondary school children also almost the same, which is 17,759. And we can see how the number increased from primary school to secondary school. The numbers who use electronic cigarette or vape in primary school is about 255, and when it comes to the secondary school, the numbers becoming very high until 17,759. So this data is a real data from our team on the ground, from the dental team. So this is the examples, the data from the country that adopt the concept, we believe adopt the concept of harm reduction. For example, as New Zealand, we can see the number of youth that are using e-cigarette is very alarming. For example, adolescent age from 15 to 17 in 2019, 2020, the prevalence is about 1.7%, increased to 5.8% in 2020. And for the youth age 18 to 24, from 4.5% in 2019 increased to 15%, and the latest number increased to 22.9% in 2022. So this one of the country that adopt the concept of harm reduction. And of course, other country that also adopt the concept harm reduction is the Great Britain or UK. And we can see here from 2013, the number of ever used e-cigarettes from 3.8% increase over the years, and then until 2022, the prevalence is already 15.8%. And then from the same study in UK, we show that people who never start smoking and started and try vape and e-cigarette increase over the years, and the trend is kept increasing. You can see the black dotted line increase, and until 2022 is about 40.1% people, youth who had tried an e-cigarette, which these youth never tried any smoking or e-cigarettes before. So where do they get the source of e-cigarettes? This is quite shocking, because we know that United Kingdom is one of the countries that have a very good enforcement. However, when they do the survey and ask the youth and ask the adolescent, where did they get the e-cigarette? They said that they get the e-cigarette or vape from the shop. So this is when the industry in Malaysia claim that they can regulate themselves. So if you can see in UK, this in UK the youth still the main source where the youth get the e-cigarettes is from the shop. So Malaysia, it will be harder to regulate the shop when it comes to selling the e-cigarettes to the underage. So this is the reason the youth from UK reason for e-cigarette use by the youth. So the highest among the never smoker, they said they just want to try the vapes, and then the second highest is because the other people use them, so they also use them. Maybe this is a peer influence. And then of course the third reason is because of the flavor. This flavor is one of the factor that attract children and adolescents to use e-cigarettes. I think the same situation also happened in Malaysia. However, if we can see the perception of harm of e-cigarettes among youth in United Kingdom have been increasing over the years. So the youth, so these numbers, despite the promotion by the government that the e-cigarette is safer and so on, but the youth believe that the e-cigarette is not safer than the conventional smoke, the conventional cigarette. So when we talk about initiation, so they come. So this is the nicotine form. I will explain about the nicotine form in e-cigarettes. So in general, the first generation of e-cigarette, they use the free base nicotine, which is the free base nicotine can cause a sudden sensory effect or hardness on the throats. So it is not palatable. So when they want to increase the concentration of the nicotine, it will become non-palatable. So then the invention of nicotine salt came, and then the nicotine salt make the e-cigarettes more palatable, and then they can increase the nicotine concentration from the vape liquid, so that higher nicotine concentration can be added to the liquid. So the protonated form of nicotine, which is nicotine salt, is being correlated with more smooth sensory effect, and they have a higher absorption compared to the free base nicotine. So with this new finding, with this new technology, and then of course it will make the vape more palatable, and this will increase the popularity of e-cigarette among the youth and among the children and adolescents. So these are a few tactics that is used to target children and youth to initiate vaping or using e-cigarettes. First is marketing to social media, sponsoring music festivals and events, introducing appealing flavor, attractive e-cigarette or vape device and packaging design, e-cigarette and vape shop, which they open near the schools, and then marketing through sports and using famous actors and artists and also public influencer. I will show to you all the example. For example, they sponsor the music festival, and of course, in the music festival, there will be kids also attending the music festival who will see that this is they will try to normalize the culture of vaping, and this is one of the factor that one of the trick that they use to initiate to familiarize vaping among adolescents. And then appealing flavor, there are a lot of flavor in Malaysia. We can see Fanta, Jagung, chocolate. If you went to pastry shop or cake, you can see the vape house or the vape boutique have more flavor than the cake or the pastry shop. And then this flavor is very appealing to the adolescent and to the children. And of course, we can see here all the attractive device, all the attractive packaging that have been used to attract kids to use e-cigarettes. This is very concerned, because when the kids see this, they will see, even my children, when even my son, when I show the tiger pot to him, and then he said to me later, where is my toy? So this is how the industry want to promote vapes and all the product to the children. And then, of course, they open the vape shop near the schools. And then marketing through sports. This is what happened. This is in Malaysia, and they sponsor. They sponsor the jersey for the students. And then we can see also they are using famous actor, artists, and public influencer to promote vape. Of course, not directly to children, but when children see famous actor, artists using vape, saying that vape is better, vape is safer than safer than conventional cigarettes, then the youth and then the children and the adolescent will be easily influenced by what they saw in the television. And then this is few conclusion. So despite of the uncertainty over the effectiveness of harm reduction for smoking cessation, children and adolescent was targeted by the e-cigarette and vape industries. And then harm reduction narrative posed a threat to the reduction of nicotine addiction, of course. And then more research and attention should also be given to the nicotine form, which is, for example, the nicotine salt that present in this product, in order to address the nicotine addiction in the population. And then, of course, the global control global tobacco control priority remain the implementation of comprehensive evidence should be evidence-based and well enforced for the population at the population level policy. And then, as outlined in the FCTC, this aim to reduce the uptake for smoking by young people and prompt smokers to quit. So what I want to highlight is this is not actually harm reduction, but this is a form of harm creation. And now they are targeting the new generation so that their product will be, people will keep using their product and addicted to the nicotine. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Moss, for your sharing. I believe everyone would agree with me that we've had some insightful presentations so far. We will wrap up today's session with a brief takeaway messages from the speaker. Dr. Moridi, would you like to go first?
Thanks, Thaarenee. So I think the key insights that I'm giving are three things. So one is, despite it being put forward as a kind of alternative of approved products for nicotine replacement therapy, e-cigarettes and vaping has very little strong evidence to both in terms of safety as well as efficacy. This is why there's big regulatory agencies which have not gone down this road of approval of this. So don't get bought into this idea that it can be used for smoking cessation. The science is not there at all. Thank you.
Dr. Moss?
So my message to all colleagues out there, don't get influenced by the industry claim. And then, of course, we will see a lot more harm and a lot the harm of vaping is keep compiling, and we can see, even though in the country which support the harm reduction, all the professionals, all the healthcare worker over there is very concerned on what is happening, especially among the youth and among the adolescent in terms of vaping and e-cigarette use among the adolescents. Okay, I think we should see the other country that I believe fail to control this, and we should not repeat what have been done and we should do better. Okay, thank you.
That brings us to the end of our webinar today. Once again, thank you to our speakers for sharing their expertise with us on today's topic. We hope that this webinar has provided you with valuable insights and has provided you with a better understanding of this crucial topic. Don't forget to tune in for our next webinar, Myths in Harm Reduction from the Perspectives of Tobacco Control, which will be on Friday, May 5th from 2 to 3 p.m. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.